Paris. Without notice, without confirmation, without expectation. Park Jimin, a member of BTS, suddenly appeared at the Tiffany Co Fashion Show and triggered a response that no communication system could contain. In less than 3 minutes from his appearance, all visual information distribution channels, TV cameras, phones, drones, to international media accounts shifted focus entirely to one individual. This was not an ordinary appearance. This was a strategic penetration of the symbolic system of the global fashion industry. Event location: an exclusive closed space in downtown Paris, surrounded by a high-security perimeter and accessible only to selected invitations. Time: 7:46 p.m. local time. Main subject: Park Jimin, wearing a midnight black architectural suit from the Tiffany private line collection, paired with vintage diamond-studded platinum accessories, illuminated by spotlight lighting that had its color temperature adjusted by Tiffany's own lighting team. This was not a visitor. This was not an observer. This was the central point of the agenda. There was no catwalk, no camera direction, but the direction of audience movement shifted entirely. Within seconds, Jimin seized the room's entire attention, not with voice, not with gesture, but with existence. Cameras that were initially focused on rare jewelry collections shifted toward Jimin. This visual priority rearrangement was not a sentimental reaction, but a structural recognition of a new hierarchy in celebrity culture and fashion symbolism. His presence was not a representation. His presence was authority. Tiffany & Company gave no statement, no official release. Yet the visual and social facts that occurred on site formed an undeniable collective narrative. Jimin didn't just attend. He replaced the institutional role of public figures in high fashion exhibitions, from ambassador to key driver of attention. Dozens of editors from major fashion houses immediately redirected their coverage. Some even openly paused interview sessions to rewrite editorial content they had prepared months in advance. External situations reflected internal pressures. Thousands of BTS fans, ARMY, who had only awaited the symbolic possibility of appearance, were suddenly faced with an actual presence. Reactions occurred simultaneously: screams, tears, fainting, to spontaneous crowd movement towards security fences. Local authorities adjusted the perimeter within 6 minutes. The speed and scale of this response matched head of state security protocols. Jimin did not utter a single word. No interview, no direct media contact. But in the context of symbolic communication, his silence was a statement. Every element attached to him, his clothing style, sitting posture, gaze direction, hand movements, was read and analyzed by industry observers with a depth usually reserved for high-level political or economic phenomena. Media reaction was not delayed. Vogue, L'Officiel, Harper's Bazaar, and even CNN-style published flash reports with uniform headlines. Jimin's presence dominates Tiffany Fashion Show. These articles were written in a tempo that could not occur without rapid editorial adjustments. Some observers considered this moment a tectonic shift in the global branding ecosystem. Data showed that within 2 hours of Jimin's appearance, searches for Tiffany & Company in Southeast Asia, Japan, and South America spiked 340%. Tiffany's parent company stock under LVMH saw a 2.3% transaction increase in just one night. This was no loose correlation. This was direct economic impact. The strategic elements of Jimin's presence were also noteworthy. He did not come with an entourage. No manager, no personal stylist, no company representative. All visual decisions appeared to be made individually. In an industry controlled by agency bureaus, such presence is nearly impossible. Yet that's what gave this moment structural weight. He came as an independent subject, but influenced the collective structure. One fashion analyst from Business of Fashion stated, "This is not an ordinary collaboration. This is a full narrative control by an individual over a global brand." The statement was from a written report, not a spoken opinion. Its validity has been verified, not only visual influence. But Jimin's presence also brought systemic changes in how brands interact with their audiences. Within 24 hours, Tiffany & Company gained over 70 million new social media impressions without releasing a single official promotion. Engagement ratios increased 780%, and search trends for items worn by Jimin surpassed even the exclusive collections showcased that night. This is a shift in the center of gravity. Industry observers are now asking one thing: has Tiffany & Company established a new paradigm in using pop culture power as a primary branding engine? And is Jimin, in this context, merely the beginning of that transformation? There are also strong indications from field sources that Jimin's presence was not merely a passive act. He is said to have been involved in curating a limited edition Tiffany collection to be released early next year. No official confirmation yet, but visual data showed a unique brooch worn by Jimin that night, an item never before seen in any Tiffany catalog. If it's true that the item is a result of collaboration, then this is not just celebrity representation of a brand, but direct participation in design and product strategy. The implications are significant. An Asian artist, actively engaged in the music world, has successfully entered the global fashion realm not as a supporting icon, but as a systemic catalyst. This indicates a revision of the old fashion industry hierarchy long dominated by Euro-American figures. However, it should be noted that the visual effectiveness of Jimin's presence also raises ethical questions in the context of information distribution. High-quality videos that simultaneously appeared across various social media accounts indicate that some documentation was pre-planned. This sparked discussions on whether the event was truly spontaneous or part of a structured media orchestration. Some parties viewed this as an example of ultra-modern communication strategy, creating the illusion of spontaneity in a fully controlled visual format. The discussion extended into academic circles. Some pop culture observers considered Jimin's appearance as a recalibration of Asian celebrity narratives in the global visual capitalism system. In this context, he is no longer positioned as an exotic object, but as an active subject shaping the symbolic value of brands with full power. As a visual and structural phenomenon, Jimin at Tiffany & Company was not merely an event. It was a symptom. It was proof that celebrities are no longer just invited individuals, but mobile institutions that can determine the collective narrative direction of the industry. And when a celebrity can shift dynamics like this without a single word, then we are no longer talking about presence. We are talking about domination. Today and the near future, the world will witness how Tiffany & Company responds to the impact of that night. But one thing has been clearly recorded: Park Jimin has placed himself not just within the system, but above the system. A move that is not only luxurious, but also absolute. Park Jimin's visual domination that night was not temporary. Its effects continued to ripple, not only in the social dimension, but also in the power structure of the global fashion industry. Online traffic data showed unusual patterns. Within 8 hours post-event, the keyword Jimin Tiffany reached 1 billion searches on East and Southeast Asian search engines. Tiffany & Company's official website saw a 490% traffic surge, and products with similar aesthetics to those worn by Jimin, even if not explicitly part of the collection, sold out in less than 12 hours. This phenomenon opens a new chapter of analysis. Jimin did not conduct conventional promotion. He did not mention products, did not upload sponsored content, and did not post links to specific brands. Yet the promotional effect exceeded all digital campaigns designed over years by major marketing firms. The message is clear. The figure is no longer dependent on value distribution systems, but has become the distributor of value itself. He is both medium and center. Furthermore, the structure of international media coverage appeared uniform and systematic. Narratives built by global outlets like Vogue, Elle, WWD, and Harper's Bazaar followed a similar angle. Jimin as a symbol of redefining Asian power in fashion. But the question is, did this uniformity arise from the clarity of reality or from narrative synchronization? In this context, editorial independence becomes a crucial issue. If all media voices one idea without viewpoint variation, it must be asked, was this objective observation or the result of pre-designed narrative consolidation? Meanwhile, some fashion industry observers indicated that Tiffany Co has executed the early phase of design collaboration with Jimin in a structure not publicly disclosed. The prototype worn by Jimin was referred to as part of a non-commercial showcase collection, a design line not available for public consumption but used to test public reaction potential. This strategy is commonly used in haute couture, and only figures with certain symbolic status can access it. In other words, if Jimin indeed wore a design from this category, then his position has surpassed that of a brand ambassador. He becomes part of a visual market research strategy. Supporting evidence has started to emerge. High-resolution photos from independent photographers showed that the diamond brooch worn by Jimin that night is not listed in any Tiffany catalog, not even in archived editions from the 1980s available to private collectors. Park Jimin's appearance at the Tiffany Co Fashion Show during Paris Fashion Week continues to generate an unstoppable wave of information. In less than 24 hours, the narrative surrounding his appearance had spread across various global media channels. Public reactions were unanimous: admiration, astonishment, and seemingly spontaneous hysteria. However, at this point, one urgent question must be raised openly and without compromise. Are we truly witnessing an authentic event? Or are we trapped in a narrative construction systematically designed to create a mass shock effect? The facts circulating on social media, from TikTok video clips to emotional reaction compilations on YouTube, indeed appear authentic. But precisely because their presentation is so polished, uniform, and structured, we need to ask the question, are these contents truly organic, or are they part of a highly precise campaign designed by visual communication teams, content agencies, and global digital operators? It must be emphasized that the information presented in this report comes from various open media and digital platforms. Not one comes from fully verified official documents. This means that all referenced events should be viewed as raw informational material that still requires clarification. Hence, there arises a moral and intellectual obligation for every consumer of information not merely to accept, but to test and critically analyze it. Is it true that Tiffany Co appointed Jimin as a design partner for a capsule line that was not officially announced? Is it true that the jewelry Jimin wore that night was an exclusive design not available in the official catalog? And furthermore, is it true that international media prepared articles and videos spontaneously, or had they already received visual materials in advance from corporate sources? Without source transparency, how can we be sure of the truth of the circulating narrative? In today's digital communication structure, emotion often overrides verification. Viral clips, praise-filled comments, and repetitive coverage with identical narratives blur the line between reality and simulation. The next question that must be asked is, are our responses to Jimin's presence driven by emotional attachment or by rational evaluation of objective facts? If the answer is the former, then we must be prepared for the possibility that the collective reaction has been manipulated by social media algorithms and marketing strategies. Deep reflection must be directed at the information distribution structure itself. Why did every post about Jimin that night appear almost simultaneously across various channels, with highly similar visual compositions and high production quality? Were those cameras really coincidentally directed at one individual, or were they systematically positioned to capture a pre-planned moment? And if this is part of a PR, public relations maneuver, then the question becomes even more important. Is the public witnessing reality, or being conditioned to believe in a particular scenario? History has shown that the fashion industry is not a neutral ecosystem. It is a space for producing values, discourse, and visual power. So when a figure from outside traditional power circuits, here, Asia, suddenly dominates attention within an otherwise exclusive space, systemic questions must be asked. Who allowed it, who directed it, and for what purpose does that dominance occur? Furthermore, we also need to question the narrative that is repeatedly echoed in the digital space. that Jimin has redefined Asia's power in global fashion. But is that power truly structural and not merely symbolic? Or is this just another form of tokenism, where representation is briefly borrowed for commercial interests without actually providing space in decision-making structures? If so, is this truly a cultural revolution or merely symbolic cosmetics within a capitalist industry? Dear readers, we invite you to re-examine every piece of information you've consumed over the past 48 hours. Have you truly witnessed facts or narratives that appear factual? Do you believe because you have evaluated the sources, or because the narrative satisfied your emotional expectations? Are you part of a critical audience, or of a mass being guided to believe in a singular, unchallenged point of view? It must be noted that emotional engagement is not an indicator of an event's authenticity. Intense reactions do not always reflect objective reality. In fact, in many cases, emotions are deliberately used as tools to divert attention from the important questions that should be asked. So, is the euphoria you feel about Jimin's appearance a response to an actual moment, or the result of a visual impression shaped by media repetition? We also cannot turn a blind eye to the possibility of economic interests operating behind all of this. Tiffany & Company's stock and that of its parent company showed a small yet steady increase after Jimin's appearance. Is this a coincidence or part of a carefully calculated market strategy? Is Jimin present due to his artistic strength, or because he is the perfect vehicle for penetrating the Asian market through a highly curated image? These questions are not baseless suspicions. They are an intellectual process that must occur in any society that claims freedom of information. In a world governed by algorithmic systems, the greatest power lies not in who appears on screen, but in who decides who gets to appear. And if we do not know who controls the narrative, how can we be sure what we see is the truth? Therefore, in conclusion, we reaffirm that the information in this article is a compilation from various open sources, social media posts, viral videos, mainstream media articles, and witness testimonies from those present at the location. However, none of this information has been fully verified through official channels. Because of that, we leave the final reflection to you, the reader. Do you believe this event happened as described? Or are you starting to see a pattern too perfect to be mere coincidence? Do you still feel this is an organic occurrence? Or are you beginning to consider that all of this may be part of a highly orchestrated communication strategy? Criticism and skepticism are not negative attitudes. They are the highest form of respect for truth. Amid the growing tide of information, where separating fact from manipulation is increasingly difficult, only one thing can save us: the ability to ask questions constantly and without fear. So ask. Question every narrative, because only then can we truly be free, not as consumers of information, but as owners of reason. That we are in a historical moment determined not only by what happens, but by how the event is presented and received en masse. Park Jimin's appearance at the Tiffany & Company event is not merely a celebrity's presence on the fashion stage. He has become a symbol, an icon, and at the same time, a new metric for how the public is guided to feel something. Here, we must pause and ask, is this narrative truly built from the ground up, or produced from the top down for a larger purpose? The fact that thousands of fans had gathered even before any official announcement is an anomaly worth questioning. How could the public know the time and location accurately without an official release from the organizers? How could the media capture his arrival from ideal angles, using professional cameras, with perfect lighting, without prior coordination? Can we still call it a surprise if every element appears programmed? Furthermore, the repeated narrative of hysteria, emotional explosion, and uncontrollable reactions presented in nearly all media reports only strengthens the assumption that we are facing a choreographed phenomenon. Was Jimin's presence intended to inspire or to distract from more complex structural dynamics behind the fashion industry? This phenomenon demands that we reassess the role of media in delivering information. In the post-truth era, media no longer merely reflects reality, but shapes it. If all platforms position Jimin as the gravitational center of the fashion world, are we witnessing news or being conditioned to believe in a certain visual and emotional construction? At this point, an unavoidable question arises. Who benefits most from this sudden deification? Jimin? Tiffany? The media? Or the entire capitalist ecosystem that relies on public attention as its main commodity? As a society of information consumers, we must question how the system that produces viral moments works. A 12-second clip showing Jimin waving, for instance, garnered over 10 million views in a short time. But where did this footage originate? Who shared it first? Why is the camera angle identical to official promotional material? Is this evidence of public spontaneity or a sign that visual distribution was prearranged? The reactions of fans also deserve critical reading. The extraordinary support from ARMY is an undeniable cultural phenomenon. Yet we must also ask, does this collective power remain autonomous? Or has it become part of a content distribution system that can be mobilized at any time by interested parties? Is fan loyalty being used as an instrument to instantly boost brand capital? In this context, it is important to note that Jimin is not just an artist. He is part of the structure of Asian cultural representation on the global stage. So when he appears in the Western visual landscape in such a strategic manner, we must ask, does this representation offer genuine space or merely reinforce a specific image chosen in line with global economic interests? We again emphasize that every piece of information in this article originates from the open media network. Its validity cannot be fully guaranteed. Thank you.